Welcome, Children of the Night, back to the Infernal Archive, the wrap-up episode for Season 1. We made it. It took over a year. I don't know. We've been doing Season 1 for I don't know how long.
For an eternity.
For a while. Thank you very much for being patient. We swear Season 2 will be more regular. We have a producer now, somebody who can schedule us and get us on track. So hopefully we can get things on a more regular basis. But Andrew, could you tell our Children of the Night what we're up to on our wrap-up episode?
So we thought it would just be nice to kind of go back through all the films we watched, rank them kind of in two sort of categories. There's scariest, things we thought were either scared us the most or most unsettling or most fitting with the emotion trying to be evoked in the genre, and best, so ones that we liked the best or thought were most objectively, if there is such a thing, were the better films.
And I think in a show like this where we're reviewing horror movies, it is worth doing two rankings because maybe you're in the mood for a good movie and then you might want to see the better movies, or are you in the mood to sit down and get scared and spooked or whatever? And that's kind of a different desire. They're not necessarily the same thing. Optimally, you would see a scary and good movie. But that's not always.
I mean, to be fair, the lists aren't super far off in terms of. There's a few in the top, the top are the top in both, but they're just ordered slightly differently, more or less.
Totally, and it's the thing is if a movie is genuinely scary, I like that movie usually.
Usually.
I can't think of very many movies that I genuinely find scary that I don't like because that's an emotion I try to.
I can think of lots.
Yeah, can you? Yeah, that's the thing. I try to elicit when I go to theater. So if you are a genuinely scary film, you're probably, in my books, you're going to be already 5 points ahead of.
I think Sinister is that the one with all the creepy videos he finds. Yeah. The red guy. Yeah.
No, the red guy's on Sinister.
No, that's
Insidious.
It's Insidious. Yeah, the demon face.
They came out right about the same time, so it makes sense.
They're scary. It's not that I don't like them because they're bad movies. I don't like them because they scared the shit out of me. So
fair. I fucking love those movies. Okay, let's. Andrew, do you want to begin by reading the scariest movies?
Let's start with scary. We're a horror show after all. Should we go? We'll
Let's go
top
worst to best.
Worst to best.
Okay.
Surprising no one. In the worst spot, we've got Don't Look Now.
Yeah.
Might come as a shock to a lot of people, but Donald Sutherland sucking titties in Venice, not super scary.
And not super compelling.
Not super compelling.
As a film.
It might sound compelling, but for an hour and a half film.
And before I saw it, I was like, I'll watch Donald Sutherland do anything. I was proven wrong. I will not watch Donald Sutherland do anything. He's great. I don't want to watch you vacation in Venice for 2.5 hours or whatever. No. It felt like 2.5 hours. Anyways.
Also, probably not a huge shock, but has a lot of any of our European viewers pissed off.
Well,
Spanish in particular.
Yeah.
Thesis was also not very scary and generally not super compelling.
Begins interesting.
Yeah.
Gets progressively less interesting as the film goes on.
Yeah.
It never the very first death is like, oh, this is interesting, and then it just never, and then it progressively is just like, let's make it less interesting as we go, and that's not great. It's not what you want a movie to do.
Now we start kind of getting into the middling ones here. We've got Begotten first. What can we say about this one? If you're into art films, you'll enjoy it.
I think we said if you took, there's probably 5 minutes worth of really spectacular visuals in Begotten, and if you put maybe a freaky track under that 5 minutes would probably be like, ooh, that was spooky. You wouldn't want to be in a dark room watching that shit.
If you saw it on a VHS in another film as
yes,
why is that weird shit on the TV? That could be scary.
But as a whatever, I can't remember how long the movie was, but let's say it was over an hour.
It was
probably over an hour.
It was just over an hour.
An hour. It's not enough for an hour-long film. Just I don't really want to sit there watching a nonsensical plot for an hour. But yeah.
Then we put, then it's Burrowers.
Is it?
No. I guess then Starry Eyes.
Yeah.
And them. They're both similar in terms of interesting concepts. Enjoyed them in their own way, but not really scary.
Yeah, these aren't bad movies.
Nope.
They're just not particularly frightening.
Not particularly frightening. Burrowers, again, in concept and the first 20 minutes of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty spooky.
Mm-hmm. Has some scary imagery.
Some scary imagery, but again, not
that has
really.
been negated.
Yeah, immediately negated.
Yeah.
So again, not very scary. Haunt again was like very generic overall in concept.
Mm-hmm.
So like kind of scary. Oh, there's a haunted house where they're actually going to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
But then once the reveal happens, like a third of the way through the movie,
It's just
falls off.
It's tough when you make your killers blubbering idiots. It's like if Jason Voorhees slept on a banana peel, it's like I'm not really that scared of Jason Voorhees anymore. And there's like stuff that happens in Haunt that it's obviously it's not that egregious, but it's like it's kind of equivalent. It's like you have now revealed these people to be idiots, and now I'm not. How are you gonna make me scared of idiots? I'm just not. And this isn't like Hills of Eyes idiots that are like inbred idiots. That's scary. That's not this.
Because that's unhinged.
Yeah,
and
that's
like, what are they going to do next?
Oh God.
These are just incompetent fuckers who have all the control and they just let it slip out of their hands.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're incompetent.
Because they're idiots.
Then we have Resolution, but again, just because there's that humor in the film, so it just kind of concept was still pretty spooky, but just didn't hit the horror notes really.
Yeah. Existentially freaky, maybe not necessarily like jump scare freaky. Although it did have some jump scare. It had one really good jump scare, but.
Then we have Henry, again, not so much scary as just really fucked up and unsettling. So just had to be higher on the list because it deals with a lot of upsetting subject matter and lots of upsetting imagery and conceptually upsetting.
Leaves you with one of those movies that leaves you with an ill feeling in your tummy. So if you like Midsommar and the kind of emotion that film evokes, this is way more realistic, but it's like it leaves you with that.
Yeah. Same with Pulse in that less that the film was scary and more that the concept that the film is presenting is, if you think about it for a second, is really frightening.
Yeah.
Apocalypse by Ghost is
interesting.
It's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and it's taken seriously, like not funny.
No.
It's very straight-faced. It's also I want to say there was like a jump scare too in that movie, so like I always want to bring that up because like some people are after like the just the whatever the adrenaline rush. So it's like it's got stuff and it's interesting. It is interesting.
Funny Games was above that. Again, other than the last 10 minutes,
Which gets weird.
It gets weird, but until that point, it's just an effective home invasion movie.
Yeah.
So if you're into that genre, that subgenre, I guess, of horror, effective, scary.
Performances are really strong.
Which elevates the whole thing. No One Will Save You. That's our Alien film. Just in general, again, like aliens, they're scary. In this film, they were scary. The ending was really messed up, unsettling. So that one had to be ranked high, I think, for scary. Then we have The Vanishing, coming in our number 3 slot. Again, just conceptually very, very, very unsettling. The idea of being at a rest stop and then all of a sudden your significant other is gone. And then personal one for me, I fought for this one to be a little higher because the idea of being buried alive is awful. And even the hint of that scares the shit out of me.
It's awful, yeah.
So don't want to spoil anything, but those are both pieces that elevated it.
And a phenomenal film.
Yeah. Gone Jam, again, in terms of jump scare per minute, if you want to.
Yeah,
because
so many of these, and we've been running into this quite a bit, just doing the show in general, is just like you look up horror movies and like the primary one of the primary purposes of this show is to get. Well, me, I love horror. I seek out horror. But like I want to see horror I haven't seen before, so it's like why not do a show where it's like I get to watch stuff I've never seen before, and then Andrew and I get to experience movies for the first time together. And there's a huge world of movies that we haven't seen, but obviously if you haven't seen them, you don't know how scary they are, and you don't know how well they fit into that genre. So anybody could call something horror, and that's what we do. Is like we go online, we look up best underrated 100 horror movies or whatever, and then we pick the ones that sound interesting
based off of like a 2-line or 3-line description.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes they don't necessarily neatly fit into that. But I'll say like these next two I would consider firmly in the horror category. Like that is what they are.
And I would recommend them like Halloween, want to watch something scary with some friends.
Totally.
Gone Jam, and in particular, our number 1 slot, Host. Host is for sure the scariest in terms of in-your-face jump scare, set up a mood, set up an aesthetic, deliver on that promise of being a scary film post hits that mark for sure.
And it, like the runtime is like just over an hour. Like it's that's the thing. Like it's difficult to get a better Halloween movie. Like the film doesn't deal with Halloween at all. So if you want a little bit of that aesthetic of like it being you know what I mean, like the movie Halloween or like Nightmare Before Christmas or whatever. So it doesn't have that. But in terms of the feel and the tone and everything, it is like a rock solid Halloween movie.
And the jump scares that are in there are very effective.
Yeah.
So
there's not a ton of them, but they're used. Well, it's not a huge runtime, but they're used incredibly effectively. They're done very well. It's a great movie. Great horror film. Okay, we are now going to move on to our favorite films, bottom to top. And there's some similarities, there's some differences. But we'll start at the bottom. To no one's surprise, Don't Look Now, the Donald Sutherland film. Just don't see it. Don't see it. It's not a movie. It's not worth existing as a film. I didn't enjoy it. We didn't enjoy it.
It was hilariously bad.
I can't believe that it's as critically well hailed as it is. What a fucking ridiculous. It's one of those things where you see it and you're like, this is an Emperor's New Clothes situation. Don't get it. Above that is The Burrowers. Also not really worth existing. If you cut maybe a half an hour out of that movie, maybe more, you could probably get something sort of interesting. But as it stands, as it exists, just not a good movie. We got Begotten above that. It's an art house film. There's no the plot.
How do you rank it?
You won't understand the plot unless you look it up. So I don't know. It's whatever. It's an art house film. It has some cool visuals. I'll give it that. Thesis is just above that. Once again, I respect the hustle. I respect that it's a student film, difficult to make and whatever. But it's not very scary. It's not very compelling. It goes on too long. It's got just fundamental issues going on with it. Haunt is above that. Haunt begins intriguing, gets once again progressively less interesting. The villains are idiots. It just kind of falls apart on itself.
And it wasn't like there was nothing conceptually unique about it, really.
No,
that
it should have been a very easy movie to make.
Yeah,
and they fucked it up somehow.
Yeah.
Above that we have Starry Eyes. Conceptually much more interesting. It's actually it's a movie about Hollywood and filmmaking, but the darker side and what is expected, like expectations placed upon women above men, and like the sexism in Hollywood, and like it does a lot. It has a lot it wants to do conceptually that's very interesting. Some of it feels very amateurish, and then some of it feels very professional. But yeah, it kind of like goes between that amateur professional too much to like be like a higher in the list. But I think it's a good movie. Like the movies this and above are good movies. Below this, not good movies. But Starry Eyes I would call good, and everything above this I would call good movies.
Yeah.
Above that we have Them. It's the French home invasion film. Ils, I believe, is in French is Them. It was good. It's if you enjoy home invasion films, Andrew and I have talked about this before. We've that genre probably plays to a female audience a little better, because that's a fear I think that maybe women have above men in general. But it is like, it's one of those things. I've said this to Alex, because Alex is terrified of the xenomorph, and I always say, like, I wish I could be in your brain when I see an alien movie, because I would love to be fucking terrified of the xenomorph. And it's like when I see a home invasion movie, I'm like, I wish I could like jump into Amy's brain for a second and experience a home invasion movie from her eyes, because the way she's perceiving it is she's like, this is the worst nightmare ever. Like
totally, because even as much folly as there is in this, in my head, it's like, I could maybe take him. Like
I'm gonna try.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna
even though I'm probably wrong. It's like in my head, I'm like,
I'm gonna try.
I could get some good licks in there.
So Them is there. A good, well-made movie though. French movie. Pulse is just above that. Conceptually, super interesting movie. Apocalypse by Ghost. We've talked about how we enjoy Apocalypse. The original. Reign of Fire is the best example of these of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy that originality.
It was just a little slow
and confusing. Like they would jump between characters, and we weren't sure who were friends and who weren't friends, and what the groups were necessarily. And it was like they would cut to a different scene, but the continuity would feel like it should have been a different shot. I don't know. There's weird stuff about it, but conceptually super interesting, and I think it belongs squarely in the middle of this list. Above that, we have Funny Games. Great performances, some truly chilling moments. Naomi Watts is great. The villains are awesome.
Michael Pitt, or whatever his name is, the main.
Yeah,
he's
phenomenal. This movie it tries to do this meta thing that just shouldn't have been in the movie. It just doesn't add anything.
No, it took away from the horror, really.
Yeah.
They could have left it a lot more ambiguous, and it would have been way more effective, I think.
Yeah. I'm trying. It's like if at the end of Avatar, it was like James Cameron popped up and he said, "Well, this was all on a computer the whole time," and it's like,
Why did we need? Why did you need to say that?
It worked as an alien movie on the Pandora. I don't. Okay, whatever. So that was a little weird, but good film, I think, up until the last little while. Gonjiam, just a good horror movie. Korean film? Yeah, Korean movie.
Film. Yep.
Good scares, good visuals, original use of GoPros, which is tough to do in this day and age. Like, really original use. So that I think that movie deserves some props. It just maybe some of the scares weren't quite as good. We've seen Grave Encounters.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've seen Grave Encounters. It wasn't original in terms of concept, and there was a bit of a disconnect between the opening and the rest of the film.
Yeah.
That could have worked, but it just felt kind of jarring. I remember us thinking
the opening might have been a little long too.
It was long.
Maybe it took a little long to get to the because like that was so nice about Grave Encounters is like the movie begins and you're like at the place already. Like they're already doing that kind of stuff. If we hadn't, if Andrew and I, if there was a universe where we'd never seen Grave Encounters, we would like this film better. But because they're so similar and the one is clearly better, it's tough. It's like the movie had a little bit going against it.
Tips the scales a little bit.
Yeah. Next on our list is Resolution. Great performances, really great script. Super constricted in terms of its scale. Like it's mainly two guys the whole movie. There's some other characters or whatever.
And we were really impressed that it was like a $20,000 like less. It was a very inexpensive movie. They had their budget. As filmmakers, we can appreciate they knew what their budget were. They knew what their was. They knew what their constraints were, and they were able to make an effective film given all those constraints and all the things they had at their disposal.
Yeah, so. It's like a wunderkind independent film. Like it's like what you want to see when you go see an independent movie. Something that doesn't feel so ambitious that it's out of reach, but it's like it's so good just across the board, and it's the type of movie that inspires an independent filmmaker because you're like, I can do something good if I put my mind to it. It gives you that kind of a feel, and it's just like a very intriguing movie by itself. These filmmakers, they've made a couple other movies, and I think they're just getting each one people like more and more, and they're getting more refined, and they get bigger budgets. And so I hope these guys keep making movies because they're just great at their craft. Next movie, we have Host. We talked about it before. It was the top of our scary movie list. Great scary movie, great runtime, very, very brisk runtime. Not saying that it has to be brisk, but that's cool. Not a lot of movies do that these days. Just good. It delivers what it says it's going to deliver, and that is nice when a movie does that. Above that, we have No One Will Save You. Random, I think was it a Netflix film?
Disney Plus, I think.
Oh, Disney Plus. So just sort of a random movie that was put on streaming. I don't think it had maybe in the States it had a limited theatrical release, but anyways, here it didn't. And we just threw it on. It was our very first Infernal Archive, I believe. And just great. Great lead actress, Caitlin Dever, is that her name? I think. And
for a film with like almost no dialogue, like very limited dialogue, incredibly effective, lots of tension, told a very effective story, which I was like curious when we going into it, knowing that there wasn't much dialogue. How are they going to effectively build a world and tell the story? But it was super effective and really messed up ending, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, once you existentially.
Very existentially messed up. And just unique, more than anything. Very unique. I haven't. When was the last time we saw an alien invasion or alien whatever movie that was totally unique in its concept?
I think it's a genre, honestly, that's super underserved in general. I think there's just like a handful of these alien movies. Like, why aren't people making more fucking alien invasion movies or alien abduction movies? It's a terrifying concept that just isn't. It's not done enough. I don't know why. I wish there was more alien movies, but I'm glad we got a great one 2 years ago or whenever we shot that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on our list, number 2, is The Vanishing. Just a great. That's like a 10 out of 10 type movie. Like incredibly strong conceptually, very well done. The casting was amazing. Like just everything about it was. It's very original. Just a phenomenal film.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to say other than you should see this. Unless you're someone who really can't get past the whole subtitles thing.
Yeah, it is a foreign film, fair enough.
So it's a foreign film, but like if you can get past that, or that doesn't bother you, highly recommend.
There's an American remake that we haven't seen, but from our friend Alex, he's told us about it. They just ruined the ending, so I wouldn't recommend that being the one you watch. I would recommend watching this one, which is it a French production or Danish or I can't remember.
Dutch maybe.
French, Dutch, yeah. But yeah, this is like these two are like the cinephile movies. Like if you are a cinephile, you need to see these two movies. And then top of our list, I think it was like the second movie we watched, but it was just we were shocked at how good it was. It was like seeing a lost Tarantino movie, but when Tarantino was at his bravest. Like it's almost like if you found the movie that Tarantino made before he ever made any other movie, and he was like, I am experimenting with. It has all those aspects. Maybe the performances aren't as strong necessarily as a Tarantino movie, but they're still very good. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Michael Rooker in his debut.
Yeah, he is undeniably great.
Yeah, very obviously a role written for him to some degree. Yeah, what can't say enough good things about it. Just an incredible movie. One of those ones. It's like, how did we not know about this before?
Totally.
How did we go this many years of being, cinephiles, being into movies and not see or hear of this movie?
And that is one thing about this show that I enjoy is like we are seeing some like hidden gems that we would never watch if it wasn't for the context of the show. Like
Totally.
I probably would never watch Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer unless it was randomly given to me on like a list or whatever.
Yeah, or someone recommended it specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. So yeah, that's our list from scariest bottom to top and best bottom to top. Thank you so much for joining us on the first season of the Infernal Archive. We've got a new, here you go, you can see it. We've got a new setup that's going to be present in the next season. I think there's a couple episodes with our original setup, so it's going to be a little weird. We had to due to some unforeseen circumstances, we lost some audio, so we had to refilm the ending of season 1. But you can kind of see we got a new setup. We're going to have a wheel that's really cool. Yeah, thank you so much for watching.
We'll see you in season 2.
Yeah.